Stories that cement our shared heritage and destiny. KBC. Informing, educating, and entertaining Kenyans as one nation. KBC. Kenya's listening. Kenya's watching.
Good evening, you are in time for Prime Edition, the second day of August 2021. My name is Mboya.
My name is Museo. Thank you so much for joining us. We have the latest, of course, a comprehensive bulletin of all these events as they happened here in Kenya and around the world. That includes business and sports.
And sports, we have some medals, so we're going to give them more details a little later on. Plus, live in studio, Dr. Hussein Baga, consultant, physician and nephrologist from Mboya, will be looking at COVID with a focus on kidney disease. But first things first, tonight's highlights.
We actually have about 90 to 95% students who have already reported in the schools we went to.
It's a new chapter. 90% of Form 1 students report to school on day one.
Dire situation in Laikipia. Dozens of schools close as pupils flee insecurity.
All the trees in Tokyo get slippery for Kenya with hopes of clinching a medal in Volleyball Olympics going up in smoke. Very well, thank you for joining us. Remember, you can join in the conversation right here on our social media platforms.
At KBC Channel 1 News, and the hashtag to use tonight is Prime Edition, and Wangeshi is a sign language interpreter tonight. Welcome to the broadcast.
Let's go straight to our top story. The government projects 100% of Form 1 students' admission by the end of the week. According to Education Chief Administrative Secretary Dr. Sarah Ruto, at least 90% of the Form 1 students have reported at their respective school Monday. Timothy Kipnusi paints a picture of how the day of Form 1 admission was countrywide.
The first day of Form 1 admission is St. George's Girls High School, Nairobi. Parents and guardians being taken through a rigorous process.
This is my firstborn, so you can imagine the oomph.
But now the school uniform, it's where the parents are feeling the pinch.
First, the officials have to confirm if the name of a particular student appears in the National Education Management System before being admitted.
We have not yet experienced anyone in St. George's who is missing in the NEMIS system.
Education Chief Administrative Secretary Dr. Sarah Ruto was here to monitor the process. Said so far the turn-up countrywide was impressive.
And we are very pleased that in the spot checks we have already done, we actually have about 90 to 95% students who have already reported in the schools we went to.
In Kisumu, parents and learners at Kisumu Boys High School had to endure the morning light showers to secure an admission at the extra county school. Parents who did not manage to pay school fees in full blamed the COVID-19 pandemic for the poor state of the economy.
Imeathiri sana wazazi kwa sababu kuna wazazi katika hii nchi ya Kenya. Wazazi wengi ni wale wazazi ambao wao wanatafuta.
My expectation is to be much greater than what I was before in primary and get new heights of knowledge.
In Mombasa's Shimolatewa High School, hundreds of students thronged the institution with their parents as strict COVID-19 health protocols were observed to the latter.
The dormitories, we have made some little makeshift We have turned one of the dining hall to be a hostel.
And in Narok, the local uniform stores, bookshops and bus stops flooded with parents who are struggling to purchase required items for their children, reporting Form 1.
Mimi naimisa tu wale ambao wanauza nguo wasiuze nguo pia na bei ya juu sana, kwa sababu bado watu wanajikamua kulingana na hii COVID-19.
It was the same script at Cabernet High School in Baringo County, with parents who accompanied their children for admission decried the challenges they go through to raise school fees owing to the adverse effects of COVID-19 pandemic.
This is my school choice and I'm happy and I've been eagerly waiting to join this school.
We have challenges in accommodation. We have a dormitory that is nearly complete. It's about 90-something% complete. We are doing the final details.
Even as the Form 1 selection continues for the next 5 days, it has emerged that harsh economic times occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic has taken a toll to many parents. This even as the government continues to step up efforts to ensure the 100% transition from primary to secondary is achieved. Timothy Kipnoso, Prime Edition, Nairobi.
As schools opened their doors to new learners today, special schools were not left behind. Kambui School for the Hearing Impaired welcomed grade 1 pupils. The school head teacher said she is optimistic they will receive a high number of learners, being the beginning of a new calendar year.
Residents of Kiambu, Nairobi and its environs gathered at Nairobi Farmers Market located along Kiambu Road to buy farm fresh foodstuff directly from farmers.
If you bring farmers closer to the consumers, what is happening, and that is why the prices are quite reasonable, because you do not have people in between who are supposedly supposed to add value, but indeed are not adding any value, but they are increasing the price. And therefore, bringing the farmer closer to the consumer makes the product.
The initiative by the Kenya Climate Innovation Center and the Nairobi Farmers Market targets at holding a special market day weekly to encourage younger people to embrace agriculture.
The youth we are supporting are benefiting mostly the companies that have innovative ideas in agribusiness. So we are supporting them to upscale their businesses.
Currently, the average age of a farmer is 61.
And I'm very happy to see today that they have been working closely with mainly very young people who are coming into agriculture or agribusiness.
Speaker said the main business challenges faced by farmers and small businesses is access to markets and the creation of sustainable and strategic marketing networks. The initiative seeks to bring together farmers, traders, service providers, stakeholders, and other players across the various value chains to create market linkages amongst them.
Move from education matters and get into security or lack of it. 4 more schools have been closed in Laikipia West following rising cases of insecurity in the area. Parents from the affected schools pulled out their children from classes citing safety. Over 10 schools in the area have now been closed following rising cases of bandit attacks, blamed on armed herders who have invaded the area in search of pasture for their livestock.
Thousands of learners and teachers have fled the troubled Laikipia West constituency following rising cases of bandit attacks and livestock theft. 4 more schools were closed on Monday, bringing the number of schools affected to over 10.
Kama hapa tumesimama, hiyo shule tayari imefungwa. Watoto hawajakuja shule for the last 1 week. Alafu huku juu kuna shule zingine 4. Kwa kijumla tuko na shule 5 zenye zimefungwa kwa sababu ya ishi.
I think with the modalities that we have put in place, we are sure that learning will continue without disruption. And I want to refute this. There's no one who has moved out of Wangwashi area or Moran area because of clashes or because of the bandits.
Tension remains high in the region after days of bandit attacks and counter operations to flush out criminals from Laikipia Nature Conservancy at the board of Baringo and Laikipia counties and Loisaba Wildlife Conservancy at the board of Samburu, Laikipia, Isiolo counties.
So by Friday, we assure the community that those people that have been arrested for causing mayhem around this area will be brought to book, and they will be taken to court and they will be arraigned in court on Friday.
Last week, the government gave the herders 7 days to move out of the private ranches, warning that invasion of private property will not be tolerated. Suleiman Yeri, Prime Edition.
And the government has extended registration for the Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education and the Kenya Certificate of Primary Education examinations by 2 weeks to ensure no candidate is left behind. The exercise that was to end on the 31st of last month will now close on the August 14th, 2021. Head teachers and principals are to ensure that all bona fide candidates are registered for the examinations that is set to be done in March 2022 within the remaining 2 weeks. The Minister of Education has extended by 2 weeks the registration of the 2021 Kenya Certificate of Primary Education and Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education that was to close on Saturday. According to the ministry, by July 31st, when the registration was to close, only 1.2 million KCPE candidates and 824,392 KCSE candidates had registered for the national examinations. In the spirit of leaving no one behind, the government has extended registration deadline by another 2 weeks. In a statement from the Minister of Education, the registration deadline will be followed with a verification of candidates' registration details as captured in the 2021 KCPE and KCSE nominal rolls between August 16th and 27th, 2021. Duly signed nominal rolls and medical reports for candidates with special needs will be required to be submitted to sub-county directors of education together with other registration documents. Last year, 1.1 million candidates and 752,602 candidates were registered for the KCPE and KCSE examinations respectively, representing an increase of 2.29% and 9.54% in candidature in the 2021 KCPE and KCSE examinations.
Let's now shift gears and move into the world of politics. ODM party leader Raila Amolo Odinga has rubbished the bottom-up economic recovery approach being touted by Deputy President William Ruto, claiming it was propaganda that encourages the culture of handouts. While at a funeral of Janet Munda, wife to ODM National Treasurer Timothy Bosire in Nyamira County, Raila insists that stalled BBI had superior benefits to offer, including disbursement of 35% of shared natural resources to the grassroots. The party leader, who was at it again with his charm offensive on how to clinch the country's top seat, said Kenya's economy could be at the same footing with Korea and other Asian countries if independence roadmap had been implemented.
Ugatuzi, tupandishe pesa ambayo inatoka juu ili chini kutoka 15 ifike 35 kumia wanapinga. Nasema sasa kitu nataka ni kutoa pesa tuweke pale mboga nini atakwenda kuchukua. Hiyo itakwenda wapi? Tunapaka tuwe na systems ambayo zinafanya kazi zinaendelea mbele. Hapo ndio tunaelekea.
And Kimilili Member of Parliament Didmas Baraza was on Monday morning arrested, charged and released on 150,000 shillings bail after denying assault charges. The MP is accused of assaulting a local contractor who had locked 5 classrooms at Baptist Lurare Primary School in Kamukuya Ward, demanding his unpaid dues.
Kimilili MP Didmas Barasa is a free man after the court granted him bail in his assault charges case. In a video that went viral, Barasa is seen arguing with a contractor, come musician Stephen Masinde, popularly known as Steve K, before slapping him. It is alleged that the MP had arrived at Baptist Lurare Primary School in his constituency to officially open 5 classrooms built by the National Government Constituency Development Fund but found them locked by the contractor, who was demanding his payment of 3.4 million shillings, leading to the altercation.
Didmas Wekesa Barasa was arrested at dawn today in the morning, and he's been brought to court, where he's been charged with the offense of causing grievous harm to my client, Steve K. And I want to laud the police for that swift move, because as I told the press last time when this matter went before the police station, we said that the letter that you need to be brought to court should be today, the Monday, so that it can set as an example to other leaders.
The MP was picked from his home in Kimilili, Bungoma County in the wee hours of Monday morning, but later released by the Kimilili Law Court's resident magistrate Gladys Athiambo. For Prime Edition, I'm Ben Troy-Njue.
Let's now take you back to an item here in education that now has the right clip. As schools opened their doors to the new learners today, special schools were not left behind. Kambui School for the hearing impaired welcomed grade 1 pupils. The school's head teacher said she's very optimistic that they will receive a high number of learners beginning of the new calendar year.
This is Kambui School for the hearing impaired pupils. Monday and admission of grade 1 pupils is ongoing. Connie Mutiso, the school head teacher, says they are ready for the new learners who will embrace sign language.
Today we have received 20 so far, but we are expecting 40 years. Special school, one way of managing the COVID, we don't allow visitors in school.
We are admitting like almost 50. Yes. So our students come from near and far.
Grace Nyokabi, a parent, is happy at admitting her 2 children, but is appealing to the government to offer more support to parents with special needs children.
Serikali itubusi na hii shule yetu juu ya hatuna madarasa mingi ya kusomeshia watoto wetu, tena watusaidie na tuone kama vile watoto wetu wanaweza pata, tuache kulipa hii school fees mingi sana, watusaidie kiasi. Choo zetu tuko na problem mpaka sadoms. Sasa tukiona mtu anaweza tusaidia, tunaweza furahia.
The school has a population of 260 pupils, excluding the ones being admitted today. Kambui also hosts a secondary school for the hearing impaired. Its Form 1 students will report to school tomorrow. Ruth Wamboi for Prime Edition.
Time for us now to take our first commercial break right here on Prime Edition, and when we return,
we'll be having an interview with Dr. Hussein Baga, consultant physician and nephrologist, and we'll be speaking about COVID with a specific bias on kidney disease. Stay with us.
Stay with us.
Serikali ya KANU iongozwa na kiongozi shupavu katika kontinenti la Afrika nzima, na ndipo basi rais na KANU na serikali ikajitolea na wakauliza hata wapinzani na kila mmoja aungane na sisi sasa kuhakikisha kwamba tunatafutia vijana wetu nafasi za kazi.
Kupata skizo tune ya Karau na DJ, bonyeza star 811 star 967 hash.
Raya, hii ni kwa matiche wote. Please, do not confuse the government. Usianza kufinya ile kitu inasema more fire, ama ile ya the roof is on fire, ama unaanza kusema we are killing this party, ama the party is just a bomb, we are having a blast. No. Wewe cheza musiki and just be Fitland. Enjoy, ama namna kani. Sawa. Over and out.
Bonyeza star 811 star 967 hash. Star 811 star 967 hash.
This is where it all began. As the mother of broadcasting in Kenya, you can trust KBC to bring you authentic news and programs to your living room. As KBC, we take pride in our unrivaled heritage as Kenya's trusted national broadcaster. Commanding over 92% digital television signal coverage of our country, 23 radio services that cut across our entire language spectrum, a national, regional and international digital presence backed by the most experienced and top-notch broadcast professionals in the industry.
A very good evening to you.
The new look Kenya Broadcasting Corporation is truly ahead of the pack. Turn to the mother of broadcasting in Kenya for stories that resonate with our identity, our aspirations as a people united in purpose. Real stories of hard work, of passion, of creativity, of big dreams. Stories that cement our nationhood. Stories that bring us together as one. We take pride in our shared heritage and destiny. KBC. Informing, educating and entertaining Kenyans as one nation. KBC. Kenya's listening. Kenya's watching.
Well, as we had promised you, our guest tonight, Dr. Hussein Baga, is a consultant, a physician, and also a nephrologist, and is here to talk to us about COVID with a specific bias on kidney. Thank you very much, Daktari.
Thank you for having me.
For honoring our invitation. And we, as a country, we've gone through the first wave, we've gone through the second wave, we've gone through the third wave, and now there's talk about the fourth wave. And my first question, as your opening remarks, is, are we winning this brutal battle on COVID-19?
Well, currently as we speak, the numbers are quite high. Especially in Nairobi, the hospitals are being overwhelmed. Every day we, at the MP Shah Hospital, have to transfer a couple of patients to ICUs, so we have to look for ICU beds, which are quite scarce in our country. Mm-hmm. So right now, I think we're still grappling with it. I don't think we're winning the war as yet. Mm-hmm. We have to be responsible citizens. I mean, the onus is upon us. We can't always blame other people for our own behaviors. So my humble appeal to everybody is just wear a mask all the time when you're out, social distancing, and hygiene. Hand hygiene is very important when it comes to prevention.
So a lot of emphasis on the protocols that have been fronted by the Ministry of Health. But even as we are seeing that surge and that spike in the Delta variant, what would you tell our viewers? How would you describe this variant called the Delta? How serious is it?
So the Delta variant currently is the most predominant variant in most of the countries in the world. The reason why it's become very important is that it is highly infectious. It is more infectious than the Lambda variant that was initial variant. We are now seeing that it is causing more severe disease than the previous variant as well. And now currently in Kenya we are seeing the younger population getting the more severe disease. So we really need to be careful currently as we speak.
Because I remember previously there was a lot of emphasis that was placed on people with comorbidities and the elder demographic. But today we are seeing younger and younger showing up with COVID-19. So what would you advise as, you know, the extra caution that Kenyans should take?
I mean, you see, because of the fact that we've gone through the first wave, the second wave, and the third, and people have survived through it, I mean, people have started becoming lax, unfortunately. You go to supermarkets, you'll find people having the masks on but covering the chins, not the nose or the mouth. You'll find people shaking hands, people going for parties. Now is not the time to go for this. I humbly appeal to everybody, postpone these gatherings, postpone the weddings, or if you want to have a wedding, just have it with the immediate family members. Don't have huge parties or gatherings.
Political
rallies as well. It's a humble appeal to the government as well. We saw what happened in India after the political rallies. Their cases really shot up to more than 400,000 a day. Yes.
Yeah.
So we don't have the infrastructure in terms of the healthcare to deal with the massive numbers that can come about because of political rallies or gatherings or people not socially distancing themselves.
Especially now that
with the Delta variant.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So let's shift a bit and move into now your area of speciality, which is kidney. How have you been able to ensure that kidney transplants take place in these COVID-centric times?
So I had the transplant unit at the MP Shah Hospital, and when the COVID pandemic started, especially when we got our first case in Kenya in March last year, we put a hold to transplants basically across the country because of the fact that we did not know how severe it was going to be, for how long it was going to last. I mean, it was all very new to all of us across the world. So across the country, Nairobi, Eldoret, where we do kidney transplants, we basically halted our transplant programs until we saw what was happening and how we were going to deal with it. Now, we need to remember that patients who are going to be transplanted are going to be on heavy immunosuppression. So we technically suppress the body's immunity to fight and any infections, because this is also what helps to protect the the new kidney that the recipient has. Because if it were not for these immunosuppressant drugs, the body would reject the kidney because it is a foreign tissue. But it also comes with its own collateral damage because you are predisposed to getting infections as well.
That's true.
So with the COVID-19 and the way how infectious it was, we had to put a halt to it, and we know that patients who have comorbidities, patients who have kidney disease, patients who have transplanted tend to get more severe disease. So we had to come up with protocols and guidelines for our country as to how we can go ahead with the transplant programs.
So when you put the transplants on hold, you don't necessarily suspend, the urgency of the patient needing Medicare. So what do you do as a mitigating?
So the patients who require renal replacement therapy, so there are two forms of renal replacement therapy. One is dialysis and one is transplant. Of course, transplant is a preferred modality of the renal replacement therapy. And I always tell my patients that transplant is never an emergency because we have the stopgap measure of dialysis. Yes, which basically acts as a surrogate kidney, which cleans out the blood from, removes all the toxins and balances out your electrolytes and your acid base and everything. So for these patients, we basically who do require transplants, majority of them are already on dialysis. Yes. So they're already stable on dialysis.
So if you delay the transplant, it's not a life and death issue.
It normally shouldn't be a life and death issue. Of course, we always advocate for transplant as early as possible. But we have to weigh the benefit versus the risk. So at that point in time, when the COVID pandemic started, a lot of centers across the world halted their transplant programs because we needed to know what exactly was happening and how we were going to deal with it. Because as I said, studies showed that those patients who were transplanted and got COVID, their outcome was not good. Yes.
All right. So it was prudent to suspend it. Now, in terms of post-surgery care, do we have adequate human resource, capacity to provide the critical care? Because I know after surgery, there is that very important critical care that is required. So in terms of capacity, do we have those resources? And number two, how about the medicines that patients have to take after surgery? Are they reasonably priced here in Kenya, and are they readily available?
So the answer to your first question about the human resource, yes, we do have the human resource, and we do have the structures in place, the critical care units to take care of our patients post-transplant. At the MP Shah Hospital, after the transplant, the recipient goes to the critical care unit for very close monitoring for 3 to 4 days. They're not on the ventilator or anything, it's just purely for monitoring purposes. In terms of personnel, yes, we do have nephrologists who are also trained in transplants as well here in Kenya.
Here in Kenya?
Yes.
Okay.
So we do the transplants. We've been doing transplants for a long period of time here in Kenya.
Okay.
It started off with the Kenyatta National Hospital.
Okay.
They're still doing their transplants as well. Mpisha Hospital for the past 3 years has been doing transplants as well.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the drugs, the drugs are available. They're actually readily available, reasonably priced, but it still is prudent to remember that these patients require the drugs for life.
For life, okay.
Now, initially, for the first 1 year, every month, the patient has to pay 40,000 Kenyan shillings every month for the drugs.
A lot of money.
Yes, it's a lot of money, yes. Now, when you look at dialysis, the dialysis costs 76,000 Kenyan shillings every month for the government, the NHIF to reimburse the hospitals. They provide 2 dialysis sessions every week, amounting to 8 sessions a month.
A month, yeah.
And they reimburse 9,500, which comes to 76,000.
Yeah.
So if the NHIF is reimbursing 76,000 a month to the hospital, so the patient doesn't pay anything, it would be more economical to reimburse for the medications. The 40,000, so you're saving 36,000. Now, a lot of patients, when they're told that they have to pay 40,000 a month for the rest of their life,
it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. A lot of patients say that, look, we're getting dialysis for free, so why don't we just remain on dialysis? Yes, but now if you look at it, the direct cost savings that happens, the 36,000 that happens every month, plus remember that when somebody is on dialysis, they do it minimum twice a week or 3 times a week. They spend half of the day in the hospital 2 or 3 times a week. So they're not at the workplace. So we are basically losing the GDP that this person will be contributing. So there's the indirect savings as well.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, since we are doing a bit of maths, why then do we have a sizable number of Kenyans, for example, traveling to India? When locally we can have the transplant here? And you've spoken about the mathematics, and it sort of makes sense to me, you know, to have it done here. Would that be a fair statement?
So yes, there's a lot of misconception that we don't do transplants here in Kenya, unfortunately, up to now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of misconception that yes, transplants are being done here, but you know, they are the very junior doctors who are doing it. That is not true. I mean, we have very seasoned doctors who are doing the transplant surgeries. Their outcomes have been excellent. We have done audits as the Kenya Renal Association, which is headed by my mentor, Dr. Ahmed Twahir. And we have guidelines in place to help the hospitals who want to start transplant programs as well. We published the national guidelines last year and launched them last year. So we are doing transplants. We have been doing transplants for the past 2 decades. Yes. So the cost is much cheaper than going abroad.
It's much cheaper than going abroad. Yeah. Just repeat that so that I make sure I got you. I got you right.
The cost is much cheaper when you do the transplants here in Kenya. And I'll give you an example. When you go to India, for example, you will travel with 4 people. The donor, the recipient, and then 2 people for support.
For care.
Yes. So you have to take care of their flights. You have to take care of the accommodation there, their food. There's a cost of the transplant itself. In India, you're supposed to stay for 3 months in India for the transplant. The rest of your family can't travel and see you as well because, of course, there's a cost aspect to it. Now, when you do it here, the cost basically is much less. I mean, we at the Mpisha Hospital, our cost on average comes to around 1.7 to 1.8 million, which is the total cost of both the donor and the recipient, the surgery, the stay in the hospital for up to 10 days, which is very reasonable. If you go to India and if you do the maths, it comes to around 2 to 2.5 million.
Way above what you'd spent locally.
Exactly.
Now you spoke about guidelines, and I just want you to touch a little bit on the regulatory framework that is in place to help donors, because we have people who are willing to donate, you know, their organs, and then in the last minute, they change their minds and say we were coerced. So how do you ensure that, you know, that value chain is seamless?
So what happens is, like I'll give an example of the model that we have at Mpisha Hospital. We have a transplant committee that consists of your nephrologists, your surgeons, your anesthetists. We also have the counselor, and then separately we have a donor advocate as well. So the donor advocate is in no way part of the transplant process itself. So he's a totally independent person who now sits with the donor and then explains the risks and benefits and explores any issues that the donor might have. So that way then he gives us a report, and if he feels that the donor is not ready in any way, then we call it off.
You call it off?
Yes, and he goes for further counseling until we are fully sure that the donor has not been coerced or the donor is giving it out of his own free will.
Free will.
Yes.
And that's very important. So can we get emergency dialysis at any time now that we are living right in the middle of COVID-centric times?
So most of the hospitals work 24 hours. Now at the MP Shah Hospital, we have started the nighttime dialysis, meaning that even at night you can get your dialysis in case if you missed it during the day. The main aim of starting it was basically because of the people who are working, okay, or if you are taking care of a patient who is on dialysis and you are in the working class group. So we don't want you to miss your work, or we don't want the patient to miss his or her work as well. So we have started this nighttime dialysis, which runs from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. the following day. Now, even for emergency dialysis, as long as you're stable, you can be dialyzed at no extra costs. Okay, it is just covered under the NHIF as well.
So the NHIF plays a very important role.
It plays a vital role, and I just want to thank the government for their initiative for the NHIF, because I used to see before the NHIF came in, people would be selling land to get their loved ones onto dialysis. It was expensive. It's very expensive.
And today NHIF is sorting that out.
NHIF is sorting it out. You just have to pay 500 shillings a month. I would appeal humbly to all the citizens, please pay up, because you never know when you will require it. Trust me. Yes.
So it's working for you. The NHIF.
The NHIF,
especially for your patients.
For my patients, because remember 9,500 twice a week in a month is 76,000. For the rest of your life.
Wow.
Unless you get transplanted.
Okay, so we're coming to the close of this interview. What are the signs of kidney problems?
That's a very important question. I keep on getting asked that. Unfortunately, until you are in the extremes, you don't get the signs or symptoms of kidney disease. When you are in the extremes, you will come with swollen legs, swollen face, you are vomiting, you're not passing urine, you can't breathe because the fluid is accumulating in the lungs. But up to stage 4, you might just feel a bit tired, and you'll attribute it to working hard.
Lethargy,
yes.
Hard work, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
So it's very difficult to tell the early days of a kidney complication.
If you are at risk, now who are the people who are at risk? Is those people who have diabetes, who have high blood pressure, a family history of kidney disease. Then they need to be concerned and worried if they feel tired, if they find that the legs are getting swollen. So what do they
do? Do they come forward for some tests?
They need to come for tests. The only way you can know is by doing a blood test, the kidney function test. That's the only way you can know.
That's an important one.
It's very important.
So as your closing remarks, I know the African Association of Nephrologists was headed by the late Dr. Anthony Jude Were Omolo. And he had started something. So I'm wondering, what and Pole for your loss, because I know he was important and a very important resource for you. So what he started, what are you doing to build on it?
So Professor Were was a mentor to me and to many of the young nephrologists. His passing away was a big shock to the fraternity, nephrology fraternity, and to the population at large as well, because he was a brilliant man. His vision was to have the African Association of Nephrology opening up collaborations between the African countries and to help build a working network among the African countries to see how we can improve our human resources, how we can improve our delivery of nephrology services to every African country. That was his dream.
That was a big vision.
Yes. And from the tributes that poured in last year, everybody respected the great man. And currently, we are all part of the committees that he had started off with. So we have the transplantation committee, for which I am part of. There's a dialysis committee. So we are all working together to gather data to see which countries require our support in terms of helping, in terms of the technical know-how, in improving our nephrology services and building more collaboration between the African countries.
And that's a good place to end the interview. Thank you very much, Dr. Hussein Bagba. Thank you for coming through.
Thank you so much.
All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we also need to get an update on the COVID status. So we will take you back to Purity. Then later on, we will have the day sports and business. Stay with us.
Thank you so much, Tom. And of course, as people with underlying conditions want to stay safe, Kenya's COVID-19 positivity rate now stands at 12.5%. Kenya on Monday recorded 591 new positive cases of COVID-19 from a sample size of 4,737 tested in the last 24 hours. And total confirmed positive cases now stand at 204,271. One on the positive note, 561 patients have recovered from the disease. Sadly, the country has lost 24 patients from the disease, pushing the cumulative fatalities to 3,970. And Kenya has, by today, vaccinated 1.7 million people. Globally, 198 million cumulative positive cases have so far been reported, with a total death toll standing at 4.2 million. Let's now take a break. When we return, business news is up next. Stay with us.
What does this number mean to you? A pack leader? A winner? Or just a number? To us, it means freshness, boldness, vibrancy, and heritage. That's why at KBC Channel 1, we make it easier for you to pop up your family entertainment to a fresh, exciting, and colorful bouquet.
Ala, Nissan Serena ndio hii, na unaweza kuwa wewe ndio tunapikia simu. Kodi ya Nissan Serena ni NS, alafu kisha kwenye amount ni 50 bob. Hii Nissan Serena tunakupatia na shilingi 50.
Kujiunga na QuickBid ni rahisi. Enda kwenye M-Pesa, bonyeza paybill, kisha weka business number 4032353. Kwenye account, weka kodi ya bidhaa unayotaka na bidi yako ya chini zaidi. Kwa mfano, TV 16. Kisha weka shilingi 20 tu kama idadi yako. Weka bidi yako pia kwenye www.quickbid.co.ke. Kumbuka, bidi ya chini zaidi ya kipekee ndio hununua. QuickBid, bidhaa bora kwa bei ya chini.
It's now time for business news. The business community should ensure that COVID-19 protocols are adhered to at their ventures, lest more stringent measures be introduced. Industrialization and Trade Cabinet Secretary Betty Maina, who held talks with the business community, said small and medium-sized enterprises are critical in the fight against COVID-19.
The government is calling on businesses to take responsibility in ensuring COVID-19 guidelines are adhered to, lest more stringent measures be introduced. Trade CS said the government recognizes that the health crisis created by the fourth wave of the pandemic could potentially overrun the country's health sector, as well as worsen the economic downturn that the country has been experiencing. Hence, Kenyans should not relax from observing the protocols.
All of these guidelines, they provide for safe operations of businesses in compliance with the protocols that were issued by the Ministry of Health, and ensure that we can keep businesses open as long as possible, so long as these guidelines are followed and adhered to.
The private sector is in the process of rolling out a vaccines initiative in partnership with the Ministry of Health, which will see the business community funding the purchase of 1 million vaccines.
We currently have committed to 1 million vaccines as private sector, where we are working with government, where they will purchase on our behalf. And we have also committed to help them roll out and sort of build our herd immunity. Because the faster we get to herd immunity, the faster we'll be able to open up our economy and do what we really want to do, which is to do business.
She said the incentive that the government is giving Kenyans now is for each individual to self-police to avoid the spread of the virus.
We just wanted to ask all our members to turn around and let us, not do the crowding spaces. Let's do what is supposed to be done. And for the bigger organizations that are able, we would also like to appeal for them to see what they can do to support the MSMEs that are there.
As the fourth wave of COVID-19 continues to ravage the country, business leaders insist that the business community ought to ensure adherence to the measures put in place to prevent a situation where more stringent measures could be introduced that could further plunge the economy and curtail business. Betty Kiptum, Prime Edition.
Thank you, Betty. Elsewhere, the Kenya National Highways Authority, KENHA, says it will prosecute directors, owners and drivers of vehicles for overloading offences. KENHA Assistant Director in charge of Axle Load, Michael Ngala, says contractors ferrying loose cargo on all roads must comply to the Axle Load regulations and the relevant traffic laws in Kenya or face the law.
The Kenya National Highways Authority, KENHA, says trucks owned by Kenyans are the worst overloaders and are responsible for 30% of destruction of road surfaces. KENHA Assistant Director in charge of Axle Load, Michael Ngala, says the worst axle load offenders are sand, loose cargo and contractors. Ngala says KENHA has obtained data from NTSA and other government agencies on beneficial owners of all trucks, which will be used in prosecuting offenders.
When a truck is overloaded, as I say, we charge the owner and the driver. The owner is actually the registered owner of the driver.
Ngala says stakeholders have been sensitized on the menace to ensure that offenders face the law to encourage full compliance with the law.
For this special owner, we also charge them because they are not supposed to get the vehicle from a registered owner, and they benefit from the business through overloading.
KENHA has also threatened to auction trucks currently being held at its various weighbridge yards impounded due to overloading in the last 3 months. The trucks are being held after their owners failed to pay the stipulated fines. He says KENHA has provided technical support to transport circles to enhance compliance. For Prime Edition, I'm Brian Munyoki.
And the Kenya Climate Innovation Center has partnered with Nairobi Farmers Market to hold a special market day for farmers to sell fresh farm produce directly to customers. Organizers said the initiative seeks to address market access and the creation of sustainable and strategic market networks, which are the main challenges faced by farmers and startup businesses.
Residents of Kiambu, Nairobi and its environs gathered at Nairobi Farmers Market located along Kiambu Road to buy farm fresh foodstuff directly from farmers.
If you bring farmers closer to the consumers, what is happening, and that is why the prices are quite reasonable, because you do not have people in between who are supposedly supposed to add value, but indeed are not adding any value, but they are increasing the price. And therefore, bringing the farmer closer to the consumer makes the product.
The initiative by the Kenya Climate Innovation Center and the Nairobi Farmers Market targets at holding a special market day weekly to encourage younger people to embrace agriculture.
The youth we are supporting are benefiting mostly the companies that have innovative ideas in agribusiness. So we are supporting them to upscale their businesses.
Currently, the average age of a farmer is 61.
And I'm very happy to see today that they have been working closely with mainly very young people who are coming into agriculture or agribusiness.
Speaker said the main business challenges faced by farmers and small businesses is access to markets and the creation of sustainable and strategic marketing networks. The initiative seeks to bring together farmers, traders, service providers, stakeholders, and other players across the various value chains to create market linkages amongst them.
Video conferencing firm Zoom has agreed to pay $86 million to settle a class action privacy lawsuit in the U.S. The lawsuit alleged that Zoom had invaded the privacy of millions of users by sharing personal data with Facebook, Google, and LinkedIn. Here are the details of this and other stories from across the borders.
The lawsuit accused Zoom of misstating that it offers end-to-end encryption and for failing to prevent hackers from Zoom bombing sessions. The firm denies any wrongdoing but has agreed to boost its security practices. The preliminary settlement, which also includes a provision that Zoom will give its staff specialized training in data handling and privacy, is still subject to approval by a California district judge. The class action lawsuit filed in March 2020 in California is just one of several legal complaints facing the US-based video conferencing platform. The lawsuit was filed on behalf of Zoom, Meetings paid subscribers nationwide as well as free users. Meanwhile, banking giant HSBC says its first half profit has more than doubled as it has benefited from an economic rebound in Britain and Hong Kong. Europe's biggest bank by assets saw pre-tax profit for the period rise to $10.8 billion compared to $4.32 billion for the same time last year. The UK-based bank said all regions had been profitable in the period. The figures come as the global economy emerges from the impact of the coronavirus pandemic. The lender highlighted that its UK bank had reported profit before tax of more than $2.1 billion in the period. Finally, Brazil's coffee producers are seeing a steep drop in output this year following last year's record harvest, making it hard for them to take advantage of current high prices. Brazil's record coffee harvest last year was the result of favorable weather combined with an expanded cultivation area. Producers were also helped by a hike in international prices and a strong devaluation of the Brazilian currency, boosting the gains of exporters. The coffee crop in Brazil in 2020 was estimated at a record 68.08 million bags, showing an increase of 28% compared to last season, thanks to the positive biennial cycle of Arabica coffee, plus an increase in the harvested area.
And that's the latest in the world of business. Just before we take the sports break, I want to take you back to Tom Mboya. Tom.
Many thanks indeed, Purity. Now, a planned private visit to Uganda by Deputy President William Ruto failed to take off Monday afternoon. Reports indicate that the Deputy President did not obtain clearance to travel outside of the country as required by the Public Service.
The Deputy President is said to have arrived at the Wilson Airport at 2 p.m. on Monday, but was advised to seek clearance from the head of Public Service. And after waiting for close to 3 hours, he opted to abort his mission. In a tweet written in slang, the Deputy President made scant reference to the blocking, saying it was all right. The Ministry of Interior, however, denied claims that it blocked the DP, saying this is not within its mandate. According to the head of Public Service, is on record about the implementation of the Public Service Code of Regulations that require civil servants to be cleared by their bosses, adding that the CS could not in any way have been in a position to clear the DP. For Prime Edition, I'm Ben Troinjue.
Story brings us to a break. Stay with us. We'll be back with Richard Munga giving you the day's sports. Stay with us.
get the VIP access to the best shows on KBC Channel 1. We have something different, something special